Did you know the Roman army wasn't just a war machine, it was also a moving kitchen? Behind the shields and swords, their food system was one of the most important reasons they conquered half the known world. If you think they dined like kings with exotic feasts, think again. Their meals were brutally simple, calculated for endurance, not pleasure. But here's the twist: recent studies have uncovered shocking details about what they really ate and how it shaped the fate of empires. Stick around until the end. What I'll share about their secret ration will blow your mind. The Roman legionary was a soldier first, but survival came down to fuel. At the heart of their diet? Grain. Not fancy wheat bread, but a coarse flour called pulse, boiled into a thick porridge. It sounds basic, but this mush was the backbone of an empire. Every legionary carried around 30 kilos of equipment and marched 20 miles a day, sometimes more. A modern hiker would struggle to do that with protein bars and energy gels, but the Romans pulled it off with boiled grain. Why? Because pulse wasn't just cheap, it was flexible. Add some salt, maybe a splash of sour wine, and you had a filling, portable meal. Here's the thing: the Romans didn't rely on centralized supply trucks like modern armies. They were self-sufficient. Each soldier carried a small hand mill to grind their grain on the go. Imagine thousands of men camping at night, the sound of grinding stones filling the air, turning wheat into sustenance. And they didn't just eat it plain. When luck or conquest smiled, they added bits of bacon, cheese, or whatever they could loot from the countryside. For them, food wasn't just survival, it was psychological warfare. Every meal reminded them they could live off the land indefinitely, an edge no enemy matched. Now, let's bust a myth: Roman soldiers didn't gorge on meat every day. Meat was rare and often a bonus, not the norm. In fact, their commanders worried too much meat would make soldiers soft. Instead, they relied on beans, lentils, and vinegar water called pasca. Sounds gross? Maybe. But pasca was surprisingly smart: it killed bacteria in water and replenished electrolytes. Today, sports scientists call it a proto-energy drink. And fun fact: archaeologists in 2025 found amphorae remains with traces of herbs in Roman vinegar, suggesting they even flavored their drinks with mint and fennel. So, forget the stereotype of unrefined soldiers. These guys were proto-nutritionists. Let's not forget how logistics made or broke empires. Julius Caesar didn't win battles just with strategy, he won them with bread. His supply chains were legendary, often raiding enemy granaries before a fight to starve them out. And here's where it gets shocking: a 2025 isotope study on skeletons from Roman forts in Britain shows soldiers adapted diets regionally. When stationed in northern Europe, they ate more barley and local vegetables. In the Middle East, dates and figs entered their meals. Rome wasn't rigid. It adapted like a living organism. That flexibility fed the empire as much as its legions did. Another overlooked part? Fish sauce, or garum. This fermented fish condiment was Rome's ketchup, added to everything. It was so valuable that jars of it were traded like gold across the empire. And just this year, archaeologists uncovered a massive garum factory near Pompeii with graffiti bragging about its spicy kick. This isn't just trivia. It tells us Roman soldiers had access to flavor enhancers that made their otherwise bland diet bearable. Flavor equals morale, and morale wins wars. Now, the darker side. Not all Roman food practices were glorious. When supply lines failed, soldiers turned to whatever they could find, sometimes even shoe leather or bark. Accounts from the Dacian Wars describe troops boiling animal bones for days just to extract the last bits of nutrition. And yet, Rome's organization kept famine rare compared to their enemies. They had designated officers called quaestors managing food logistics with military precision. Think of them as the unsung heroes of empire building. Without them, no victories, no Rome. You might wonder, did Roman food affect their health? Absolutely. Dental studies of legionary remains show surprisingly strong teeth thanks to a mostly plant-based diet, but also signs of chronic wear from grinding stone dust mixed into bread. The bread was often milled on stone wheels, leaving traces of grit in the flour. So while their porridge kept them alive, it also wore down their teeth, a price they paid for empire. And as of 2025, new CT scans of Roman jawbones confirm soldiers had higher rates of tooth wear than civilians, thanks to this very issue. What's even more surprising is how food tied into discipline. Roman commanders didn't just issue rations, they used food as a tool of control. Soldiers who disobeyed orders could have their rations cut. On the flip side, extra wine or meat was a reward for valor. Food wasn't just calories, it was leverage. And let's not forget the ritual side. Banquets after victories weren't just for celebration, they reinforced loyalty to Rome. Bread and salt weren't metaphors, they were political weapons. Let's talk about the numbers. Each soldier got about 850 grams of grain per day, plus occasional meat or cheese. That's around 3,000 calories, a sweet spot for endurance. Compare that to modern military rations, and you'll see Rome figured out what worked long before nutritionists wrote textbooks. And their storage techniques were ahead of their time: clay amphorae sealed with resin, underground pits to keep grain cool, and even early forms of smoking and salting to preserve meat. Recent excavations in Germany have found preserved Roman bacon that's nearly 2,000 years old. Yes, bacon survives history. We also need to bust another modern misconception: the Roman diet wasn't static. Over time, as Rome expanded, soldiers got access to exotic spices from India, dates from North Africa, and wine from Gaul. This wasn't just luxury, it was proof of empire. When a soldier on the Rhine ate pepper from India, he literally tasted the reach of Rome. And in 2025, researchers analyzing trade routes confirmed that military supply chains were some of the earliest global food networks in history. Before globalization, Rome was already shipping food across 3 continents. Here's where it gets really wild. Some legions experimented with what we'd call performance enhancers. Ancient texts describe soldiers drinking special herbal concoctions before long marches, including ingredients like rue and coriander. Were they ancient energy drinks? Possibly. Modern analysis shows these herbs contain mild stimulants. Rome might have been running on more than grit, it might have been chemically boosted. Imagine a Red Bull made of vinegar and herbs, not tasty, but effective. And we can't talk about Roman food without mentioning their camps. Every Roman fort had a designated bakery, granaries with raised floors to keep rodents out, and strict protocols for food distribution. If you've ever wondered how an army of 5,000 kept order, food was key. Hungry soldiers revolt, fed soldiers conquer. And in 2025, LiDAR scans revealed hidden Roman supply depots along the Danube, confirming how far ahead their planning was. Now for the part you waited for, the most shocking secret of all. Archaeologists recently found evidence that in extreme circumstances, Roman soldiers carried emergency lifeboat rations, compressed biscuits made of grain, honey, and rendered fat. Basically, 2,000-year-old energy bars. This was the ace up their sleeve when supplies collapsed. And yes, traces of these have been found in sealed jars. It's proof that Rome planned for worst-case scenarios in ways that feel strikingly modern. So what's the big picture? The Roman army's food wasn't glamorous. It was repetitive, gritty, sometimes gross. But it worked. It fueled conquests, built roads, and held an empire together for centuries. And thanks to